we had hinted that something was going to have happen with Conor Timmins. His conditioning stint with Tucson ended today. So they had to make a decision. You either have to bring him back to the NHL club, put him on the roster, or put him on waivers to send him down to Tucson because he's not waivers exempt. That's what they wanted to do. The Coyotes really feel that Conor Timmins, because of all his injuries and his lack of playing time over the last few seasons, needed to just play a lot of games in the AHL. He needed that time. He needed the minutes. He needed the situation. And he needed to be away from pressure because it's not even fair to judge him on the body work he had with the Coyotes. He played 8 games. But let's face it, he wasn't very good in the 8 games. He wasn't very good in his conditioning stint either, by all reports. So it felt like he needed to play games at that level. But in spite of that, they knew if we waive him, somebody's going to claim him. There are teams, we've talked about this all season, there are teams that have been decimated on their blue line.
Including
And the Toronto Maple Leafs
yeah.
are one of those teams. And so you work out a trade. And listen, the acquisition you made he's not an NHL player. I'm sorry to disappoint all of you if you're thinking maybe this guy can make his way to the NHL. Maybe he can as a 13th or 14th forward. He's an enforcer for Tucson. That's why he's there.
6'9".
Yeah, 6'9".
Holy
He's Boko Imama's replacement right now, right? In Tucson. They need that physical presence. I don't think he's going to be an NHL player. Maybe he'll, like I said, he could be an extra, a call up, but they had to get something, I guess. But this is not an easy one for me. A lot of injuries, obviously, that have limited the ability of him to develop and the ability of the Coyotes to evaluate what they have. They don't know what Conor Timmins is. Nobody does. But when you look at this team's pipeline, particularly on the blue line, it's really hard to understand giving up on a 24-year-old big right-handed defenseman. Really, you couldn't bring him in and let him play in the NHL for a little while? And I know, Peter, you had mentioned, they sort of blocked his way with some of the moves that they made as well, but it feels like you should have created the opportunity to evaluate him if you wanted to see what you had in Conor Timmins.
It's hard because I kept hearing from everybody in Colorado, including all the people at the DNVR show, oh, this Conor Timmins, you're going to love him. Guess what? I didn't. And I don't know if I didn't because he played 8 games with no points. For an offensive defenseman, I know he got hurt a lot, but is he Brendan Gormley? He's a guy that, he's going to get better. He's going to be better. He needs to change of David Rundblad. He just needs to change the scenery. He just needs to get better. He's going to just give him time. Well, maybe not. 24, I know, is not, he's still young, but 24 isn't that young anymore. I would have expected to see glimpses or sprinkled in of, wow, I saw that burst. I didn't see it in training camp this year. I said he looked slow. I didn't think he skated very well.
I didn't see it at all.
And so he gets in those games and gosh, I don't know. And you kept waiting for it to happen. And I understand he was hurt and I understand the injuries. I just never saw that little spark that I was hoping to see that, let's give this guy a chance. Do I think they lose him for free through waivers? I do. I really do. And Toronto probably picks him up and
going on.
They probably heard that they're somebody else moving out in the middle of the night. But he's a guy that they probably were going to lose for free anyway, and I really believe that. There's no room for him here. He's not going to play, so he can't develop if you're not playing. You've already got, we talked about this, you bring in Nemeth, Brown, and Stetcher, veteran defensemen that you are planning to play ahead of him. Okay, there's no room for him, so you can't have him as your 7th or 8th D, does you absolutely no good there. Can't develop, can't play. You need him in the American League where he could play. If I send him down, somebody's going to claim him because, again, there's this perceived value because he was drafted high that he is something that I have yet to see him do. Yeah. I haven't seen it yet. And when Colorado let him go, Colorado's a pretty damn good hockey team, and they see what their talent is.
They had depth on their blue line, too.
They have so many guys that played ahead of him.
They could afford that in a trade, but you're right. There were guys ahead of him. And, I mean, I don't think Patrick Nemeth and Josh Brown were brought here to be ahead of Conor Timmins. I don't. Patrick Nemeth, I didn't even expect to play, to be honest. And I thought Josh Brown was going to be their extra, like their 7th D. So I thought Timmins would play, but then again, he gets hurt, and you just don't know what you have. I don't know how you evaluate this guy, but again, I didn't see any signs of what people had talked about.
I don't want to see what Chris's point. Can he keep him in the AHL? They can, but they have to clear waivers and send him down, and every team can put a claim in on him for free.
And that would have happened.
And we speculation it would have happened, and somebody gets him for free. So Bill Armstrong does the next best thing. But here's the next piece, and don't discount this yet. They bring in Douglas to do what he's supposed to do down in Tucson. Toronto picked up a defenseman because they have injuries. They need help today.
3 top guys out.
Right now. They need help. Somebody to play tomorrow night, they need help.
Yeah.
Guess what? Those guys come back.
Yeah.
And if Conor Timmins hasn't elevated his game and he hasn't improved, they're going to try to send him down to the Toronto Marlies. And the second they send him to the Toronto Marlies, guess who gets first up on that list?
It's going to be the lowest teams.
It's going to be Arizona.
In the standings.
Arizona's going to get him back. And you could potentially see between now and the trade deadline, Conor Timmins come back to the Arizona Coyotes.
Be crazy, huh?
So,
I
could genuinely
don't
see
say no.
Yeah, never say never. I totally like the way the whole situation has been laid out in the sense that they wanted to see him more in Tucson. He would have gotten claimed. If he's going to get claimed, you might as well get something in return for him. But to get a player in return, like we said, it's very unlikely he's going to, play in the Coyotes lineup. If he proves us wrong, we'll eat our words. But I know both of you have said, I didn't really see much from him, but he only played 8 games. And somebody in the chat earlier had said they saw him play in Tucson and he didn't look that great. But it's just, for me, it's too small of a sample size.
It is.
And for a team that's investing in the future, I don't understand why you wouldn't have just let that trial run a little bit longer. And then if you do want to trade him for something, then go ahead and do it. And I'm not listening. I'm not questioning Bill Armstrong's decision here because, I see all the reasonings for this. I just players have bad stretches of games, and I just don't think 8 games with the Coyotes is enough of a sample size to evaluate what he could have done here. And the other thing too, and people in the chat also are saying this, he's made of glass. He had a season-ending injury last year. He had a long injury to start this year. And, for Toronto, they're taking a huge gamble. They have blue line injury issues. And if they get him and the next game he gets injured, they're screwed. But I get that's a big part of it, that he has all these injury problems. I just feel like he didn't get enough of a shot here.
Yeah, he definitely didn't get a shot. I mean, you can't say he did playing 8 games. But I wonder what was the alternative? Do you put him on the NHL roster and play him, as a third pair guy? Does he develop that?
But why not let him have the chance to do that and earn his
But that's they may think you're not playing enough minutes. You're not in situations. You're not getting the chance to develop in that situation because you're not getting the minutes or the situation. So if you go down to the AHL and you're playing 22, 23 minutes a game and you're playing special teams and you're getting all that, that's when you develop the confidence and the ability to play in all those situations. So I get it from a development standpoint that the role, the position may not have been here for him in the NHL. So how do you develop a guy when you can't play him in those situations? And how do you build his confidence? If he's a third pair guy and he's not ready, if you really don't believe he belongs in the NHL right now and he's going to get exposed, that shatters a guy's confidence too. So it's tough. There's so many things to consider.